Part 1. The kitchen that blinked. The first time the eye blinked, I thought it was the fluorescence. The bulb above my kitchenette hums like a trapped hornet and flickers whenever the dryer vents downstairs cough, even though the laundromat's been dead since last winter. Flint collects ghosts like overdue bills. I rent one of them, a crumbling studio above aluminum roll-downs, 2 windows, 1 stubborn radiator, a formica table that looks like it was dragged from the set of a 70s PSA about asbestos. The table has knife grooves and cigarette halos that refuse to scrub out, and a constellation of coffee stains shaped almost like Michigan if you squint. That morning, after the night shift, I wasn't squinting. I was half awake, knuckles sore from typing until the tendons pinched, 10 hours of address fields and invoice IDs and red eyes from blue light. I poured cereal. The radiator clicked like it needed to remember how to be warm. When the milk hit the cornflakes, the bowl tapped the table and a drop ran toward a gouge near the edge. There, in the pale laminate, a wet ring gleamed. Not a circle. A curve. A curve around a glassy sphere the color of tea. It blinked. My chair rattled backward. Milk sloshed onto my lap. I stood too fast, knocking my knee into the oven. The light hummed, then steadied. The eye didn't move now. It was just the old table again, ugly and indifferent. I laughed. I always laugh when my nerves turn brittle. "Cool, Jay," I said to nobody. "You hallucinated a blinking eyeball because Kellogg's and insomnia go together." I pressed a napkin to the wet patch until it browned. The napkin lifted, and the eye was still there. No, not there, not exactly. It wasn't raised. It wasn't a picture. It was as if the formica had a depth I hadn't noticed, a shallow lens beneath the laminate. The iris was hazel flecked with green. The sclera had a tiny yellowing spiderweb, like a smoker's. It tracked me. I stepped left. It rolled left. I stepped right. It followed, a fraction slow. "Jesus," I said, suddenly whispering, because whispering felt like negotiation. "What the?" It blinked again. The lid was a seam of laminate that found itself, lips of plastic flexing wetly and sealing open and closed, like the table was learning what a blink was supposed to be. I did the dumbest thing possible. I reached out. Heat radiated through the formica when my fingertip hovered above the iris, not hot enough to hurt, just warm and alive. My skin prickled. The eye didn't flinch. It expanded, pupil widening, drinking in everything. In the slick, I saw myself, a 31-year-old with purple bags and divorce bloat and a pimple on the left jawline that refuses to age out. I saw the kitchen behind me, off-white cabinets whose paint chips curl like fish scales, a microwave with a grease shadow you can never quite scrub, the single pot plant on the sill that might be dying or just nihilist. I whispered, "Hi." The eye dilated like it understood. I didn't go to bed. I sat across from the eye and watched it watch me. I googled. Pareidolia scuff table, sleep deprivation seeing things, brown mold circles that look like eye. I found a spoon to hover like a mirror. The eye didn't care for the spoon. The pupil pinched when the metal came close, then opened when I took it away. I leaned in and saw my breath fog the glossy surface. Could eyes fog? I didn't know. The eye absorbed it. When the fog cleared, my reflection was closer than my face should have been. At 1:12 p.m., my phone battery was a sliver and my brain was a frayed rope. I snapped photos. All of them came out normal, stained laminate, cigarette burn, nowhere for an eye to be. The live photo captured only the hum of the light. "Of course," I said, to the ceiling, to the spiderweb crack in the smoke detector, to the radiator that had given up pretending. "Of course you don't show up for anyone but me." That was not the last reasonable point in the day, but it felt like a line with a tiny flag stuck in it. By 3 p.m., there were 2 more. One looking up from the chip near the sink where the dish rack rubs. One tucked in the shadow of the microwave's glass door, as if pressed from the other side. They blinked at different tempos. The first one felt like a metronome, a calm, patient watchfulness. The sink one darted, jittery. The microwave one blinked in slow, theatrical winks, like a cartoon pretending to be human. Okay, I said, because no other word had enough syllables to fill the air. Okay. I started a stream. I should say, no one watches me. I'm a night shift data monk in a dying building in a state everyone uses as a punchline until they need our water. I have a Reddit account where I lurk in r/weird and r/paranormal and r/audio engineering because I used to think I'd make beats. After the divorce, I stopped making anything except keystrokes and excuses. But I know how to set up a stream, phone on a tripod, face lit by the humming light, mic gain low so the radiator doesn't clip. I pointed the lens at the table. I positioned a Sharpa as a reference mark. I wrote on a post-it, no filters, no edits, and stuck it in frame. I titled it, The Kitchen That Blinked, Not Clickbait. I posted to a small subreddit that once believed me when I found a face in a fogged window, and didn't believe me when I confessed I'd drawn it with my finger. There were 8 viewers. Then 12. Then 30. Usernames I half recognized trickled in. Clownlum, what am I looking at? A coffee stain. Parabellum _1987, OP this better not be another pareidolia thing. JAZRAV3N, blink? Prove it. Watch, I said. My own voice sounded like a stranger narrating the worst day of my life. The eye blinked. The chat went idle. Bittergourd, holy, it moved. Admin, r/weird staff, any filters? OP, can you pan? I panned. The second eye by the sink followed. The microwave I winked like a pageant queen. I didn't know if my camera could capture what my eyes saw, but chat exploded like it could. Ghostly_utilities, deep fake. There's like plugins for this. N1 GHTSH1 FT, OP show a spoon reflection. That's how you bust a fake. I held up the spoon. The third eye's pupil contracted. In the spoon's belly I saw my own face, and behind it a smear of laminate that stared back. See? I said, like a kid begging a parent to see the magic trick. Monote, do not dox. Do not threaten. It grew. The stream count perched at 72, then 100, then 300. Questions flew. Demands? Accusations? Someone asked for a timestamp. Someone asked me to lick the table. I laughed too hard and did it, and the laugh turned into a gag because the laminate tasted like pennies and old heat. The eye's surface was slick and salty. We're not alone, I joked, because jokes keep the wolves from noticing your soft neck. The microwave dinged. I hadn't said it. Its door glass now held an eye bigger than before, and I pressed against the inside like a hand on a shower door. It fogged from within. No one breathed in there, but the fog bloomed. It drew a crescent, like a smile, and the chat twisted. Clownlung bro no. Glitch saline, I just saw it blink on my phone. WTF. JAZRAV3N, not just OP's, mine too. The video has eyes now. I stared at the screen. I saw what they saw, in the dark margins of the stream, in the reflection of the post-it, in the glossy skin of my own eyeballs in the front camera, eyelids opening and closing that didn't belong to me. The viewers started posting screenshots, a grainy flicker of an iris in the corner of their living room. A blink across a chrome kettle. A reflection in a blacked-out TV. It traveled like a yawn. By 6 p.m., my kitchen had 8 eyes, then 13. They nested in the laminate like seeds that had been waiting on rain. When I turned away, I felt them like you feel someone staring at you on the bus from 3 rows back, that invisible pressure on the side of the face. I left the stream running and took a shower because a shower means you're still the kind of person who takes care of themselves. The water beat my scalp until skin felt loose. In the steam, I shut my eyes and saw white afterimages that coalesced into pupils. I opened them and they were gone. I shut them again and there it was, an eye inside my eyelid, printed on the red like a saint's face burned into toast. I wiped a hand down my face hard enough to hurt. The hand trembled. When I blinked, the eye blinked back from inside. There's no way to explain the sensation of being seen by the act of seeing. It's like every look you've ever given was scooped up and poured back down your throat. I stumbled out of the shower dripping. The bathroom mirror hung with a hairline crack. In the mirror, behind me in the doorway, an eye opened in the peeling paint where the towel rack had ripped away last winter. It rolled toward me, slow with sleep. My reflection looked tired enough to be another person wearing me like a costume that didn't fit. Behind the phone's small sun, numbers climbed. 8,000. 10. 100 comments a minute. Someone had clipped the microwave wink and set it to banjo music. Someone else had flipped my voice lower and added reverb like a demon effect. In the chat, a moderator posted a suicide prevention hotline. I wasn't suicidal. I was just a man with a table full of eyes and a phone vomiting strangers. I said, "Do you see them now?" and sounded like a preacher asking if anyone wanted to be saved. "We're not alone." The chat typed back, some ironically, some not. At 8:22 p.m., the fluorescence faltered like the building exhaled. The eyes didn't need the light. They had their own. The first anonymous text arrived to a viewer in Omaha. They posted a screenshot, a gray bubble from a number no one recognized, a sentence that felt like a breath in your ear: "You were never alone." Then someone in Austin. Then Toronto. Then chat readers said it wasn't just viewers, that their roommates in the other room got it too, that their grandma did, that a burner phone at the bottom of a drawer chimed though it had no SIM. My phone didn't buzz. That felt worse. Like a party you weren't invited to in your own living room. By 11:01 p.m., something in me had splintered in a way that wasn't going to knit. The eyes had colonized more than the table. They nested in the grease sheen on the stove's hood. They floated in my water glass like air bubbles with intention. They pressed at my lids until the only way to keep them out was to hold my eyes wide, which made new eyes bud at the corners where tears collected. "Turn it off," someone DM'd. "You're feeding it." "Keep going," someone else said. "We're documenting history." My hands moved without my permission. I dragged the drawer with the utensils. It rattled like an alarm clock. I ignored the knives and took the paring blade with the blue plastic handle because it was small, because it looked like a toy pretending to be useful. "Jay," I told the camera, voice stranger calm. "If I'm hallucinating, this will fix it. If I'm not, this will fix it." Ma note: this is against site policy. Stream will be taken down if self-harm continues. Self-harm. It didn't feel like that. It felt like breaking through a film. It felt like peeling dried glue off skin. The knife kissed the skin under my right eye and I thought about high school biology lab, about the cow eye in the tray, the way its lens was so clear you could read through it. I thought of my ex, how she used to say I never looked at her long enough to be seen. I thought of the radiator clicks counting down, of the laundromat breathe below like a sleeping thing. I didn't narrate the rest. I don't remember sounds in order. Only the white burst, the heat like a hot pen near my face, the way the world narrowed and then went out in one quadrant and then another. I remember the stream's chat becoming a thin black waterfall. I remember my own voice saying, "It's okay." Like to a child, like to a dog after a thunderclap, like to myself in the mirror at 3 a.m. every Tuesday. Someone screamed. It could have been me. It could have been a neighbor. It could have been the building remembering it had bones. The stream cut. Hospital light is a different species from apartment light. It has no hum. It has no soft corners. It comes down in rods, white and unarguable. Bandages weigh more than you think because they carry other people's hands in their weave. Voices swam in and out. A nurse who smelled like peppermint and bleach. A doctor with a question voice. Cops, maybe, in the way a syllable turns. My sister's name moved around the room without landing. I floated. I surfaced. "Mr. Morales?" the doctor asked. "Jaden? Can you hear me?" I could hear. I could smell antiseptic. I could taste copper. I could feel the pressure of gauze over both eyes, the throb under the bones. Best of all, I could feel blankness. A damp quiet where the gaze had been. "Okay," I whispered, the word a tiny boat in my mouth. "Okay." The nurse squeezed my hand. "You're safe," she said. The gaze came back like a door quietly opening in a room you thought only you had a key to. It wasn't sight. It didn't need eyes. It was there, sitting in the chair beside the bed. It was there in the folded privacy curtain, in the surface of the saline bag, in the glossy floor wax. It was there like the pressure of weather against your skin. It was there inside my skull, not as a picture, but as the knowledge of picture. A watching that didn't need to consume light to be full. My throat closed and opened. I swallowed. I tried to shift. The nurse said, Don't move too much. And then her phone buzzed against my wrist where she held it. She pulled away. Soft footfall. A small intake of breath. What is it? The doctor asked. The nurse didn't answer for a second. Then she made a sound like she'd touched ice. I got a text. From an unknown number. The doctor's shoes tapped toward her. Paper rustled. The nurse's peppermint breath hovered a foot away. I could feel them reading it in the way bodies read language when they're 2 feet away. What does it say? I asked. My voice scratched. No one spoke. The room listened to itself. Down the hall, a machine beeped like a timid bird. The radiator under my apartment would have clicked then, if I was there. The laundromat would have breathed. When the nurse finally spoke, it was very gently, as if reading a low cloud aloud. You were never alone, she said. Silence has shapes. This one wore an audience. I couldn't see them, but I knew they were there, faces pressed close to glass, pupils wide and friendly with hunger. Somewhere, everywhere, screens lit. A server farm hummed in a part of Virginia I'd never be invited to. An anonymous number cranked out 1,000 messages a second, each landing like a finger on a throat. Phones buzzed on nightstands. TVs blinked wake without buttons. Laptops glowed in closed backpacks. And in the bandaged dark, in the soft, private theater behind my destroyed eyes, something blinked that didn't belong to me and never had. I lay still. I didn't laugh. I didn't pray. I listened to the shape of the watching and understood that blindness is not the absence of being seen. Jay? The nurse asked, as if the answer to a different question might save us both. Do you want me to call someone for you? I tried to picture the old table. The formica poured flat and blank. The gouges. The coffee Michigan. The first warm blink. For a moment, I found a version of it where it was just a table again. No, I said. There's already someone. Behind the bandages, against the red dark, a lid slid down. A lid slid up. Somewhere, a mouth of laminate formed the shape of a word. We were listening. We were watched. We were, every one of us, seen. Part 2, The Thing Under Luke's Bed. The sirens in 2005 sounded like the city had a sore throat, wore bly, late, tired of being ignored. They looped across the south side like a bad prayer. Mom was on the night shift at St. Bernard, and the living room TV said to lock your doors, close your curtains, don't answer knocks. I was 16 and felt like I could bench press the world if it would just hold still. Luke was 8 and believed in everything. Mark, he whispered from the doorway, voice a small blue flame. It's looking at me. I paused the PlayStation. The apartment made its usual noises, the fridge wheeze, the radiator's breath, the neighbor upstairs practicing the same 4 notes on trumpet like an exorcism that wouldn't take. On the screen, my paws running back leaned mid-stride toward a goal I'd never reach in real life. What's looking at you? I asked, already annoyed, already protective. The thing under my bed. You mean dust? I put on my big brother voice, the one that had a crooked grin built in. Dust is ugly enough to be anything. 2 eyes, he said. Amber. Not like yours. He didn't mean it mean. Luke had a way of murdering you gently with accuracy. His eyes were brown and earnest. Mine were my father's, hard when I was scared, hard a lot. The news kept scrolling, home invasion pattern, suspect armed, call 911 do not engage. The anchors looked like they were delivering weather from a planet that hated us. Somebody had been kicking indoors from Halstead to State, sometimes when people were home. The word spree got used like an apology for how long it had taken to stop him. I grabbed the bat from the corner. It used to be aluminum silver before hands wore it down to a dull pewter. It fit me. I didn't like that it fit me. Okay, I said. Let's go tell your monster to pay rent. Luke didn't smile. He stood behind me as we crossed the short hallway past Mom's framed CNA certificate, and the picture of the three of us at the Taste of Chicago pretending hot dogs could fix what winter broke. His room smelled like laundry and graphite. He slept on sheets with little planets on them, faded to a pastel universe from 100 wash cycles. The bed sat low, too low for a man but not for things kids fear. I crouched anyway, bat across my knees. See? I began, old enough to be smug, young enough to be wrong. The eyes blinked from the dark. Not the red pinpricks of electronics. Not the flash of a toy. 2 amber marbles, lambent, set wide apart like the distance measured the width of something impossible. They were further back than the bed should allow, and deeper, as if the floor had developed a throat. Dude, I said, which at 16 was both a greeting and a prayer. Luke knelt beside me, his shoulder warm on mine. He breathed like a kid trying not to. A soft scrape came from the dark, a sound like bone rearranging itself politely. Back up, I said, my voice gone new with fear. Go to the kitchen. Close the door, okay? He didn't move. Luke's hand found the hem of my t-shirt and curled. The eyes didn't move either, not at first. Then they slid closer in a way that wasn't sliding so much as the distance between us deciding to be smaller. I poked the bat in. It meant nothing for too long, then tapped wood. The floor. The normal world. The eyes blinked once, slow. Hey, I said to the dark, because 2005 didn't teach boys to say I'm afraid, so we said hey to danger like it owed us money. You in there? A siren outside Dopplered past, and my heart tried to draft behind it. In the apartment below, Mr. Ramos coughed until it sounded fatal, then stopped. The trumpet upstairs found a 5th note and abandoned it, repentant. The apartment door frame creaked, settling. No, that wasn't settling. It was listening. I stood. Kitchen, I repeated. Luke went this time, backward like prey, eyes on the bed. I followed, bat up, the constellation of dumb heroic plans flickering through my head, pull the bed away, stomp the dark, laugh it off. They all dissolved at the sound of our front doorknob turning. The knob made a forgiving, human sound. It clicked like a polite throat cleared. Then the deadbolt shook. Then wood at the jamb complained. Someone was on the other side with purpose. We had one lock that mattered, the chain. It snapped out last winter and I'd never fixed it because being 16 means learning what you can get away with ignoring. The latch would hold if the person outside was a small sin. The latch would not hold if they were a man who'd been winning all night. The door breathed inward a fraction, like it was embarrassed to let him in. A voice said, "Anybody home?" with a mean smile inside it. Luke grabbed my shirt. I moved him behind me with a push that was gentler than it needed to be and felt guilty for not being gentle enough. The bat got heavy and then perfect. The threshold had always been a line in my head, it became a country border with a war. The door went from breathing to straining. The latch screamed. The wood cracked. It was the sound of something promised to you being taken. I yelled, wordless, as if noise alone could armor a family. The door popped like a shoulder out of socket, and swung. The man in the doorway wore a hoodie the color of decisions people regret. He had a gun like a punctuation mark he'd practiced. He had that look some men have before they pick a fight, already bored with the story's middle, throwing themselves at the end. I thought I would swing. I thought he would shoot. That's the math we're taught in neighborhoods like ours. Instead, something big slid out from under the bed. I didn't see it, not with my eyes. I saw the idea of it. It was shadow with weight, geometry that refused to confess its edges. It would not have fit under the bed in any room built by a code inspector. It did. It shouldn't have moved with grace. It did. The air changed temperature the way it does when the freezer door hangs open. The man took one step in, gun leveled, and then his face changed shape. Not as in shock I understood, but as in rearrangement from the outside. The thing that didn't fit under anything fit him in its hands. There were hands. There were too many joints. There was the color of wet pennies and the sound of quiet teeth. The gun fired into the ceiling. Plaster made a small white storm over our cheap rug. The trumpet upstairs choked mid-note. Luke made a sound I'd never heard him make and never wanted to again. I didn't swing. The bat hung like a dumb silver sentence that couldn't decide where to end. The man made another sound, high the way fear makes even big men sound like versions of their mothers. Then he made no sound because there are sounds that collapse into themselves when your mind knows you shouldn't witness them. The thing pulled him backward without momentum, as if the floor had decided the inside of our apartment, and the underbed were the same address. He went in at the waist first. He went in halves. I saw legs. I saw the wrong angle. I saw red that was the opposite of Valentine's. Then there was only the door, open like a mouth surprised by its own words. The hallway beyond smelled like our building always did, fried onions, bleach, and someone's cologne from last decade. A neighbor shouted, "You all right?" through the wall, like politeness could plug a wound. The gun lay on the rug and looked smaller than it had in the man's hand. I pushed Luke into the bathroom and closed the door and put my body in front of it because at 16 I believed I could be a barricade. I listened to the long absence of footprint sounds. I dialed 911 with fingers that were suddenly all thumbs, told a story with all the nouns broken, said, "Gun, break in, blood," like ordering trouble from a menu. Cops came. They always come late and loud, as if volume can rewind time. They found a hallway with a door that needed replacing and a boy with a bat and a smaller boy with a planet blanket over his head. They found the legs of a man who had fallen in half across a threshold no physics class would account for. They asked questions like anyone could answer them. Did you know him? Did he shoot first? Where did the other half go? I said no to all. They went into Luke's room. They crouched like I had and shined lights and found only dust and a Lego I'd yelled about last week. The space under the bed was the space under every bed, God's own junk drawer. A detective with gray at his temples and sorrow in his posture asked me if there was anyone else in the apartment. "My mom's at work," I said. We both glanced at the blood on the rug like it was a guest who'd overstayed. He put a hand on my shoulder like he remembered being a person. He told me not to move anything. He gave me a card with a number that would turn off or change after 6 months. He asked Luke if he was okay. Luke nodded like a boy trying to convince the adults he would not make their job harder by needing something. They bagged the gun. They bagged the legs. They left with the door propped open to the hallway and blue tape like the apartment had opinions. "Mark?" Luke asked when it was quiet again. "Is it gone?" I should have said yes. I said, "I think so. Because I had a brother, and that meant sometimes telling the truth, even when a lie would tuck him in easier." He slept on the couch that night. I sat awake with the bat, and a map of all the places a thing could come out of if it wanted. At 3:11 a.m., the radiator knocked 7 times like a code I couldn't crack. At 4:05, Mom came home and said my name like it was a wound she wanted to bandage. I told her a version. We all tell versions. Life resumed in the way it does when life refuses to believe your story. Insurance replaced the door. The super charged us a stupid deposit for the blood clean. Mr. Ramos coughed 3 times, then 5. The trumpet upstairs found a melody and quit. Luke grew. He stopped asking about the thing under the bed. He learned to sleep with one foot braced against the wall like his body knew to anchor itself. Years punctured themselves like bad tires. I turned 36 and drove strangers for a living because strangers didn't ask for much except directions and silence. My car knew the city by smell, lake breath in the morning near Monroe, fryer oil on 63rd, cold iron by the tracks. My phone sat in its cradle and muttered rodeo directions. The radio stayed low because my passengers talked to themselves. Money rolled in enough to count, not enough to change. Luke moved away and then back. Men do that when their lives throw them 30-yard penalties. He got a job stalking at nights. He dated a woman who loved his patience, and left because patience hadn't saved her mother either. When we saw each other, we mostly ate and said, "You good?" like it was a password to a room we didn't actually enter. On a wet Tuesday, a ping sent me to pick up a fare on King Drive. The passenger slid in with the smell of cigarettes that he didn't light. He wore a coat built for winters our city hadn't had in a while. He set a small paper bag on his knees and folded his hands on it like prayer and groceries. "Evening," I said, default setting. He didn't answer. He said an address in a voice that had the smoothness you get when you practice your alibi too long. I merged into traffic that was mostly other men trying not to think about the things they'd seen and failed to stop. In the rearview, I watched him in the lazy way you watch people you might need to fight or flee. He met my eyes in the mirror and gave me nothing. Then he looked past me, as if something sat on the parcel shelf behind my head. My skin tightened in a way that weather couldn't justify. The light turned green and stayed someone else's problem. At the next red, my phone bloomed a message from an unknown number with a generic gray circle. "You were never alone." I laughed, a small dog's bark. "Yeah," I said out loud. "I know. I meant Luke. I meant the thing I'd never name. I meant the city that watches us with 1,000 broken windows." The passenger leaned forward just enough for his breath to touch my ear. It smelled like pennies and peppermint, like old floors and new nerve. "Still protecting him," he whispered, and it wasn't a question. My hands went cold on the wheel. I looked up, reflex, human, and the mirror gave me back a world I didn't remember choosing. Luke looked back at me. Not 8-year-old Luke, not stocking shelves Luke, but Luke as he would be if he were riding in my back seat wearing someone else's coat, older in the bones, sorrow cut neat in the cheeks. For a full second, the mirror's rules softened. His eyes glowed the amber I had pretended was a trick of boyhood. They were the same impossible distance apart, and the same impossible patience. "Luke," I said, and the name tore. The light went green without asking me. The car behind me let me know in a way that wasn't helpful. I blinked and the mirror returned the passenger, not my brother, a man whose eyes were as ordinary as winter and yet held a reflection of 2 embers far back in a tunnel. We drove. The rain did its small applause on the windshield. The city bowed and unbowed traffic lights like prayer flags. The phone buzzed 3 more times. "You were never alone. You were never alone. You were never alone." They stacked until repetition made it religion. At his stop, the passenger didn't move. He kept his hands on the bag like it contained a heart. "You tell him," he said softly, eyes on the mirror without quite finding my gaze. "You tell him thank you." "For what?" I asked, voice wrecked. "For keeping the thing hungry," he said. "For letting it eat what it should." He got out. He took the paper bag and left the door open long enough for the cold to climb in and sit in Luke's place. He didn't look back. He shut the door with the care you reserve for sleeping children and something under their beds. I sat there, hazard lights clicking like a metronome for the old patience of the dark. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Another gray circle. This time it attached a photo. The image showed our old hallway, the cheap rug replaced by nothing, the door frame underripe for strength. A pair of legs lay across the threshold like a sentence missing its beginning. The angle was wrong. The timestamp said 2005, though the phone that took it hadn't existed then. In the glossy black at the edge, 2 amber lights burned like patience. "You were never alone," the text wrote beneath it, like a friend and a verdict. I started the engine. I drove to Luke's apartment. I didn't call first because some things you can't invite. They must arrive and find you already there with the lights on. When he opened the door, he looked like our father in the hard way and our mother in the tender. He hugged me and I let him. "Do you remember?" I asked against his shoulder. He pulled back and didn't smile. "Every night that ever got dark," he said. We sat on his couch in a room lit by a lamp that believed in warmth. We watched the space under his coffee table like a horizon. The radiator knocked a manageable code. The city outside bragged and apologized the way it always had. After a while he said, "Mark?" Yeah? Thank you. For what? For saying you think so instead of yes, he said. It made me check. He lifted the edge of the couch skirt with a careful hand. The floor under there was just floor. Then it wasn't. For a second long enough to earn a name, the space went deep. Two amber halves of a patient whole considered us with a love that had teeth. They blinked once, slow. Luke let the fabric fall. We watched TV with the sound low. We didn't talk about monsters. We talked about Mom's knees and bus routes and the Bulls' chances, like the world could still be solved by schedules and practice. On my phone, the gray circle waited for me to read it again. I did. I would again. We all do. You were never alone. Part 3, Tunnel 19. When the city sleeps, Detroit hums through the teeth of its abandoned places. The hum isn't power, it's memory. Kelly Reed always said she could hear it. Ex-Army engineer, bones full of reverb. 42, titanium rod in her left shin, the kind of woman who fixed things by hitting them harder. She'd crawled through enough blast tunnels overseas to mistake fear for oxygen. Devin Malik was the opposite, 23, livestream addict, famous for doing dumb things with good lighting. His followers called him Dev Thrill. 100,000 people watched him nearly die for content 3 nights a week. They met on a live stream. She'd commented, "Your climbing rig's gonna shear if you keep that angle." He'd med, "Then film me when it does." So, they found Tunnel 19. It hadn't been touched since a 1943 munitions train went nova under downtown. 52 workers vaporized, tunnels sealed in concrete. A decade of conspiracy threads said the wreckage still glowed down there, war ghosts, mutant iron, buried payloads that twitched in the dark. Dev sold it as a live exploration. Callie called it reclamation. The city called it trespassing. The broadcast began at 10:32 p.m. Dev's headlamp sliced through dust thick as snowfall. His GoPro fed to a shoulder rig wired to his phone, chat exploding as soon as his face appeared. "Welcome, psychos," he whispered, voice pitched between swagger and prayer. "Tunnel 19, Detroit's forbidden artery. Say hi to Callie, our demolition mom." "Not funny," Callie said behind him. She checked her gauge. Oxygen pack at 92%. "You keep calling me that, I'll let the air run out." Chat spammed skull mom skull mom skull. The tunnel walls sweated black condensation. Rivulets dripped from ceiling bolts like veins that hadn't learned to clot. Dev's light found rusted rails, half buried in soot. "Radiation spike," Callie said. Her meter beeped twice. "Low, but higher than the street." "Ghost juice," Dev said. "Perfect vibe." They walked half a mile before the ceiling lowered into a choke point where fire damage turned steel into melted stalactites. The walls had fused into glossy black waves, bubbled as if still soft. "Jesus," Dev murmured. "It's like the tunnel tried to breathe." Callie knelt beside a rail welded into slag. Her glove brushed something metallic lodged in the flow, a thin, warped tag, half melted but legible. She scraped grime with her thumb. U.S. Army, Private Anthony Reese, 1943. Dog tags. Chat detonated. "Fake? No way, zoom please, Callie handcam." She held it up to Dev's lens. The tag had fused into the wall, metal grafted to metal, flesh of iron. The Geiger counter ticked faster. "Okay," Callie said. "We log it and we leave. That's a munitions fire signature. Could be residual white phosphorus, heavy metals." A sound cut her off. Not echo. Not collapse. A slow drag like a wet tarp across tile. Dev turned the camera. Something crawled out of the dark. At first it looked like a man burned to silhouette, skin charcoal, joints reversed. Then light found detail, strips of leather stitched where skin should be. Faces. Dozens of them, stitched edge to edge, a patchwork of human features moving like wind over water. The thing whispered. "Dev?" The voice was Dev's. He froze. That's a voice changer, right?" He stammered into the mic, but Callie saw his hand shaking. The creature dragged itself forward, leaving a smear of something too thick to be blood. It reached with a hand made of knuckles that didn't belong together. "End the stream," Callie said. Dev didn't. He backed up, phone clutched like a crucifix. "You guys see that?" he shouted to the feed. The chat was an unreadable river of text. The tunnel groaned, an animal noise from the bones of the city. Callie ripped the detonator from her pack. She hadn't planned to use it, just a shaped charge for the entrance, insurance. But fear rewired ethics fast. She jammed it into the seam of the wall. "When I say run, you run." Dev still filmed. His lens locked on the creature, which shivered like a flag in windless air. Faces across its chest blinked awake, mouths stretching. "Dev," it said again, his voice, and then hers. "Callie. Help." The air tasted metallic, like someone licking batteries nearby. "Run!" she screamed and hit the charge. The explosion folded sound into light. Dust swallowed them whole. When Callie woke, the world was sideways. One leg pinned. Helmet cracked. Her radio spat static. "Dev?" she croaked. Only the drip of concrete rain answered. Then, faint, his voice from the headset. "Still here." Relief stabbed and vanished when she realized the feed icon on her vest was still live. Dev's camera light blinked somewhere beyond the rubble, buried. "Stay put," she said. "Rescue's coming." "No, can't." His breath hitched like static inside lungs. "They're watching." The sound behind his words wasn't air, it was whispering, hundreds of them, folded through one throat. Then his light winked out. 2 hours later, emergency crews cracked open Tunnel 19. They found Callie near the entrance, bloody but alive. They found no one else. The live stream had ended 33 minutes after the blast. Except it hadn't. At 4:12 a.m., the feed restarted on its own. A single frame repeated for 6 hours, darkness, muffled breathing, and Dev's voice begging for help. The chat filled with panic, police reports, hoax accusations. When they finally traced the signal, it wasn't coming from Detroit. It was coming from an IP block registered to a decommissioned Army server farm in Virginia. Callie lay in the trauma ward when her phone buzzed. A number she didn't know. A message, gray and unremarkable. "You were never alone." She opened her streaming app out of reflex. The frozen thumbnail from Dev's last broadcast filled the screen. It wasn't Dev's face anymore. It was hers, stitched into the creature's chest, eyes open, still watching. Part 4, River Road Rules. Skylar Brooks filmed her life like it was proof she existed. Every morning she woke before the algorithm, golden hour light, coffee steam, perfect sigh, and every night she checked if the world still remembered her name. The Airbnb on River Road looked like it had been curated for her feed, pale cedar siding, wraparound porch, an open-plan kitchen that pretended to be rustic. Outside, the French Broad River curled through the North Carolina woods like a dark vein. The locals had warned them. "Don't let the river see your skin," the woman at the gas station said, voice cracked by decades of smoke. "It remembers faces. Gives them back wrong." Skylar had laughed, the gentle influencer laugh, the one that turns superstition into engagement. "You hear that, babe?" she told her husband Nolan. "The river's haunted. That's like free SEO." He just nodded, eyes hollow with a different kind of drowning. The gambling debts followed him like a scent. Every text buzz could be another reminder that luck isn't mercy. Day 1 to 6:04 p.m. Livestream title, #RiverySet. "Okay, guys, this place is stunning." Skylar's voice sparkled as the camera panned to the river below, catching light like oil. "We're unplugging this week. No makeup, no filters, just vibes." Chat. Speech balloon OMG the view. Speech balloon is that fog or smoke? Speech balloon girl that river's moving weird. Nolan's voice came from off-screen. "You gonna film the rules or what?" Skylar laughed. "The host left this creepy list on the fridge, look." She angled the phone. A paper note in block print. River Road rules. After dark, close all curtains. Don't let the river see your skin. Don't take photos near the water. If you hear voices, don't answer. The river remembers what it takes. Total serial killer vibes, Skylar said, smirking. We love a theme. That night she broke every rule. The bikini post hit 500,000 likes by midnight, her smiling knee-deep in silver water, caption she believed she could, so she dove. The river reflected her like a perfect mirror, until it blinked. 2:47 a.m. Nolan woke to dripping. At first, he thought it was the leaky faucet again. Then he saw the shape in the doorway, not a person, exactly, but something wet, outlined in the blue light of her Ring camera. It moved like water pretending to be human. The shape stepped forward. The sound wasn't footsteps, it was suction, like something peeling itself from the riverbed. And it was wearing Skylar's face. She screamed when he turned the lights on. He hadn't realized he'd screamed too. There were 3 of them now, all wearing her face, one at the window, one by the sink, one kneeling beside the bed. Their skin shimmered translucent, hair dripping riverweed, lips open like gills gasping. Each had her smile, wide, practiced, too white. Nolan swung the fireplace poker. The metal passed through one of them, scattering water like shattered glass. The thing reformed, droplets crawling backward across the floor, reassembling into her face again. Don't let it see your skin, Skylar whispered, backing toward the closet. Oh God, they're all me! The voices came next, her own voice multiplied, echoing from the walls, like, comment, share. By dawn, the house burned. Nolan dragged her outside while smoke climbed like a dark flag. The fire roared so high the river glowed. He watched the flames consume their reflections, one by one. Skylar sobbed into his chest. It's gone. They're gone. He held her tighter. You're safe. He lied. 3 days later, Asheville Fire Department report. Total loss. No remains found. Cause, electrical, undetermined. Nolan identified her by the ring she'd never removed. That night, in a motel off I-26, his phone buzzed. A notification from @Skylar Brooks official. New post, a photo of Skylar's drowned body smiling under the current, hair floating like ribbons. Caption, you were never alone. The comments multiplied beneath it like ripples in black water. Part 5, Descent Protocol. Blackwater caverns breathed like a lung beneath the Ozarks, 3 miles of map depth and another few that geologists only guessed at. The government called it biothermal research. The men who went down there called it something else, the descent. Cole Hawthorne didn't believe in redemption, but he believed in leverage. 35, convicted arsonist, 10 years into a life sentence. They told him freedom was waiting at the bottom if he brought back the data. He didn't ask what kind of data. Ren Tick, Gwyn had been the only survivor of the first expedition. They said she came back wrong, tick in her cheek like a metronome, eyes dilated all the time. She'd seen the organism. She wouldn't talk about it except to say, "Don't scream. It listens." The other 2, Hollis and Dre, were death row volunteers with the dead-eyed calm of men who'd already accepted their afterlife. The descent began at dawn. Level 1 clear, Cole said into the body cam. The rope hissed behind him. Air thinned, grew wet, metallic. Every sound turned to syrup. By level 3, their voices echoed twice. The second echo wasn't theirs. Copy that, Ren said from above. Her breathing rasped through the comms. Keep moving. The floor of the cavern sloped into liquid darkness. The walls weren't stone anymore. They were fused metal, molten once, cooled into rippling chrome veins. This is wrong, Hollis muttered. Rock don't look like this. Ren's tick twitched hard. It's not rock. It's residue. What residue? Something that screamed too long. They found the remains of the first team at 2,900 feet, melted gear, helmets fused to the walls, cameras still blinking faint red lights in patterns that didn't repeat. Ren crouched near one and touched the metal. It pulsed under her palm like a heartbeat. Jesus Christ, Dre said. That thing's alive. It's blind, Ren whispered. It maps the world with sound. Scream, it comes! Shoot, it comes faster! Cole's mic crackled. How do we kill it? You don't. The floor began to tremble, not quake, but breathe. It rose out of the molten pit, tall as a cathedral, skin liquid steel. No eyes, no mouth, just folds of vibrating metal flexing in rhythmic waves. It sang, but the song was made of human tones, hundreds of them, screaming and laughing inside one body. Rin froze. Her tick went wild. The clicking sound echoed through the chamber. The creature turned toward her. Cole grabbed his pistol. Ren, stop! The thing lunged. Ren screamed. The sound bounced, split, returned multiplied by 10. Gunfire exploded, bullets hissing uselessly into chrome. The vibration made their teeth bleed. Protocol says retrieve data. The voice in Cole's earpiece barked. Command, miles above. Protocol says we die, he shouted back. Ren fell. The creature wrapped her in mirrored limbs and folded her inward. Her last word. Quiet. Cole moved before the others could. He pressed the barrel to her temple. One clean shot. Mercy or cowardice, the difference doesn't matter at 3 miles down. The chamber roared. The creature convulsed, and Ren's body melted into it like metal poured into a mold. Cole ran. He followed the heat up, using the beast's wake as a current. His skin blistered, blackened, then silvered. He didn't feel pain, only acceleration. He broke the surface 30 minutes later, alone, steaming, unburned. The extraction team cheered until they saw him. His eyes were gone. His skin reflected the floodlights like polished chrome. When he opened his mouth, it wasn't breath that came out, it was the echo of every scream below. Hours later, in the observation tent, a technician replayed his body cam footage. Halfway through the ascent, the view turned. The camera faced upward, but the reflection on Cole's mirrored skin showed something else. A dark shape crawling behind him. A second Cole. Then static. The monitor buzzed. A new text notification appeared on the control tablet. No number. No sender. You were never alone. The feed looped, frame by frame, until the technician realized the reflection on the screen wasn't just showing Cole. It was showing them, right there, in the tent, watching. Part 6. The Orchard That Remembered. The fire season came early that year. Fresno County's sky was already the color of copper and regret. Eli and Mara Gutierrez lived in the last house on the Orchard Road. 12 acres of dying peach trees, soil salted from drought. 2 years since their daughter Ava drowned in the irrigation ditch behind the barn, and still the house smelled like wet earth and children's shampoo that would never run out. Verdant Corp's van came one morning, white paint clean enough to insult the dust. 3 men in mirrored shades stepped out, bringing promises and contracts. A new rootstock, they said. Resilient strain. Grows faster. Grows stronger. Just test it. We'll pay well. Mara didn't look at the money. She looked at the small sapling in its plastic pot, leaves trembling like they already knew the wind here. Will it live? She asked. The man smiled. Everything wants to live. They planted it in the center of the old orchard, where Ava used to build forts from irrigation crates. Mara sang while Eli shoveled. He hadn't heard her sing since the funeral. By the second week, the tree had doubled in height. The bark shimmered faintly when light touched it, a sheen too smooth for nature. By the third, blossoms opened in perfect symmetry. Each one the same size, same curve, same pale hue as Ava's cheeks in the summer light. Mara began visiting at dusk, sitting beneath it with her old lullabies. Eli watched from the porch, cigarette untouched, the lighter flicking in time with her song. It was harvest that broke him. The first fruit wasn't fruit. It was a shape. Round, yes, but when he turned it in his palm, the fuzz resolved into the soft outline of a face. Ava's face. Tiny, perfect. A curl of hair pressed into the peel. Even her freckles, darker spots in the skin. Mara! He shouted, dropping it. She came running, saw it, fell to her knees. Don't, she whispered, reaching out. Don't hurt her. It's not her. Mara cradled the fruit, rocking. She's growing again. She found her way back. That night, Eli woke to humming. The tree's branches moved without wind. From each blossom, a small whisper, "Mommy." He grabbed his shotgun and couldn't lift it. 3 days later, the inspectors arrived. Verdancorp wanted results. 2 SUVs, 3 men with clipboards, 1 drone circling above. "Mr. Gutierrez?" the lead called out. "We're here for sample collection." Mara stood between them and the tree, pruning shears in hand. "She's sleeping," she said softly. They laughed, until she used the shears. The report would later call it a psychotic break. The orchard disagreed. Eli watched, frozen, as the men fell one by one, their blood soaking into the thirsty ground. The tree's leaves quivered, almost sighing. When the last body hit the soil, Mara dropped the shears and knelt to the roots. "You're safe now, baby," she whispered. The sky darkened. A hum grew in the distance, the drone spinning lower, the Verdancorp logo glowing green through smoke. It sparked as it crashed, igniting dry leaves. Fire spread in seconds, orange veins racing through rows of trees like veins in a burning hand. Eli pulled Mara toward the truck. She resisted until the trunk of Ava's tree caught flame. Then she screamed, not a word, just the sound of loss remembering itself. They drove until the orchard was a red mirror in the rearview. By dawn, only ash remained. They searched the blackened ground. No bodies. No roots. Just a single, unburned seed glowing faintly among the coals. Mara picked it up, cupping it like a heartbeat. "She's still here," she said. Eli snatched it away, shaking. "We have to stop this." He flushed it down the kitchen sink, watched it spin away. Silence. Then, from the pipes, a voice, soft and wet and impossibly young. "Daddy, I'm still growing." The sink gurgled. Water ran clear for a heartbeat, then red. Eli staggered back. His phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. "You were never alone." He looked out the window. In the charred horizon, dozens of new saplings had already broken through the ash, each one swaying gently, leaves whispering like children learning to speak. Epilogue, the thread. The server farm sat miles off any highway, hidden behind rows of winter corn and a fence that buzzed softly when you leaned too close. No signs. No company logos. Just a metal plaque that said, "Property of Observer Systems. Access Level 03 required." Inside, the air was cold enough to make breath look like ghosts. Thousands of racks blinked in rhythmic blue, each tiny light a heartbeat in a nervous system too vast to belong to one mind. A technician named Hayes worked the night shift. He liked the silence. Liked that no one asked him about the scars on his wrists, or the way he flinched at every phone vibration. All he did was monitor. Watch screens. Record anomalies. Never interfere. That was Rule 1. 2:03 a.m., anomaly ping detected. Hayes leaned forward, half-empty coffee trembling on the desk. One monitor in the far corner lit up, hundreds of simultaneous text signals, spreading from 6 origins at once. He opened the window. Flint, Michigan. Chicago, Illinois. Detroit, Michigan. Asheville, North Carolina. Ozark Mountains, Arkansas. Fresno County, California. Each signal carried the same payload. "You were never alone." The timestamp matched to the millisecond. Hayes frowned, typing commands to trace origin. The traces didn't lead out, they led in, into the system itself. Screen after screen began replaying feeds he didn't know existed. A man screaming into a webcam as eyes bloomed across his kitchen walls. A teenager holding a bat, frozen between a door and a shadow. 2 explorers vanishing in molten dark. A burning river, women with waterlogged faces. A chrome-skinned creature dragging itself toward daylight. A peach orchard glowing under black ash. Each clip looped to its final frame. Each final frame stared back. The room dimmed. The monitors shifted color, blue to amber, amber to white. Every screen now displayed one image, an eye. Not identical, but connected, each iris a different shade, human, inhuman, reflective, metallic, watery. They blinked in unison. Hayes stood. His headset crackled with whispering. Voices layered over static, thousands, maybe millions, all whispering the same line in perfect, gentle chorus. You were never alone. He tore the headset off. The sound didn't stop. The monitors began cycling camera feeds from inside the facility. Hallways. Maintenance tunnels. Generator rooms. Each camera showed no movement, until it did. A figure in an O3 badge walking between the racks. Hayes squinted. The badge number was his. But he hadn't moved. He turned toward the aisle. Empty. The figure on screen turned, too, as if following his motion. It raised a hand. Hayes raised his. Perfect sync. The figure smiled. He stumbled backward into the wall of screens. The lights on every machine blinked faster, merging into one solid pulse that filled the room with white. When it cleared, every monitor displayed the same message, not text typed in code, but handwriting, uneven and human. Observer, do not engage. Below it, another line appeared, typed letter by letter. Do you understand the rules? Hayes swallowed. His hands hovered over the keyboard. He typed 3 letters before realizing he was answering something that shouldn't be asking. Yes. A pause. Then good. The screens shifted again, now showing him from above, the security feed from his own station. He looked up. There was no camera there. The feed zoomed in. His reflection blinked, once, twice, and the pupils on every monitor dilated. Then all at once, the power died. Only one screen remained active, humming faintly. On it, white text over a black background. You were never alone. They're watching. The cursor blinked, waiting for something to type back. Hayes stared, shaking. Then, from the dark, behind the hum of machines cooling in silence, a single soft sound, a breath that didn't belong to him. And somewhere, beyond the walls, the watchers began again. The eye opened. The thread resumed.